my identity isn't tied to a vocation. And I was like, can we explain that, please, and thank you to like most Americans? Please. Like, it's a big part. Vocation is great. And some of us have it, some of us don't. Some of us are very passionate about our careers. Some of us, not so much, or at least not in a healthy way. But that like pursuing a passion doesn't have to come in the form of a vocation. So welcome back to the Priority Report. I am really excited about this episode, which, if I am fully disclosing, I have already recorded once, but in my infinite wisdom did not hit the record button on the microphone. So we're gonna hope that the practice run did me some good and that I'm gonna do an even better job at presenting this for y'all the second time around. So yay me. Practice makes perfect. Practice is a daily thing that we do. Practice for progress. So here we go again. Let me try and be more succinct and a little less verbose than I was in round one. So we're going to talk in the next couple of episodes around my favorite 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are passion, power, and purpose, all of which are very interrelated with one another. We are focused in this episode on the first one, which is passion. Passion is, I'll say this multiple times, passion is the overlap between your values and your interests. Okay? So we'll talk about that, and I have a really awesome client example that I want to share with you from a great conversation I had this week, as well as share some of my own experiences with chasing my passion. So, but first, to get us started, as I promised last week, we start off each episode with a priority report from me that gives you a sense of like where my focus is, what I am working on in my own habits, routines, and systems to further my goals and better live a fulfilling life for myself, because I practice what I preach. So let's get started there first. And then we'll hop into it. So last we spoke, I had established the goal that I had literally just started of focusing on my next habit undertaking as being about drinking more water, because water's boring, y'all. Like, if you like water, props to you. I feel like I am a cactus that's like, I could take or leave it. I mean, my skin would say otherwise, I believe. I'm sure my body in general could say otherwise, but it does not appeal to me the way that I feel like it's supposed to as a human being, but whatever. The reason for this goal is hydration is super, super important when it comes to things like digestion. Which is super important when you are doing bodybuilding, not only because you want to make sure that your digestion is adequately fueling your body and it is staying consistent, but you want to keep the system like washed and regulated, if you will. You know, you want things to be moving and grooving. And I think even when you're not a bodybuilder, like that is, there's so many factors that go into our digestive health, stress and sleep, and water being some really big ones, that every little bit of effort counts in just trying to optimize digestion. And because like when your digestion is doing well, you like feel better physically as a human being at large. So like, anyway, that is a primary focus of mine, and my coach has set that with me to be 2.5 liters of water per day. Now, I think I said this last time, you don't go from 0 to 60. Like, we're not aiming for perfect with this. So for me, I had already taken some preliminary steps as part of my journey towards drinking more water That included, and I have it with me right now, my favorite water bottle. I'm throwing a little shameless self-promotion promotion out to Hydro Flask. I got this from Whole Foods in 2022. Don't ask me why I know that, but I do. Love the color purple, so hence I'm wearing purple. This is matching. Boom, boom, boom. But yeah, so I highly recommend that you have a favorite water bottle of any, whatever floats your boat, as a starting point, and then make sure you keep that water bottle filled and on your person. And I've been really good about that for probably like at least the past year. What I'm not good at is actually drinking out of it. So for me, like the goal was like, okay, now that I've been carrying this damn thing around with me, why don't I actually, I don't know, use it? So my focus for the past probably 2-ish weeks since I did the last episode has really been on, can I drink at least one of these water bottles a day? So if the goal is 2.5 liters, this is a 32 ounce bottle. Rough math here is I need to drink about 2.5 of these per day. So I have not hit 2.5 per day yet. I'm working at an incremental increased rate. So I have been pretty consistent though about drinking somewhere between 1, which is 32 ounces, and 2, which is 64 ounces in the course of a day. So I am really proud of myself for having even made it that far, because that's probably the best habits I've had around water literally in the entire course of my life. Tricks for doing that. I think because it's been a very conscious decision in my mind, I have been taking note when I see other people drinking water to drink water. I try and keep it with me when I'm having meals so that it is an immediate go-to, because I tend to want something to drink with my meals. I just don't always gravitate towards water as being the choice. I have made a point of like, if I am out for beers or wine or whatever with friends, that like in between glasses, if I'm having more than one, or even if I'm only having one, that I always have a glass of water for every glass or bottle of beer that I'm drinking, whatever the case may be. And I think that those are just some simple ways to like bring it back to the forefront, bring it back to the forefront, bring it back to the forefront, because like I don't love it anymore. I don't love water anymore now than I did previously. But I feel good about that tiny little accomplishment that I'm making for myself every day. And I'm finding that because it's a conscious choice to be drinking more water, that even though at times it might feel like an obligation, I'm actually more conscientious now of like when I'm actually thirsty. And I think like I've made other choices when that like sense of thirst has come up for me, that are either like eating or something salty or like doing some other type of behavior, versus to gravitate towards like, am I really hungry or do I just need to like drink some water? So just noticing those little changes of like, okay, my thirst cues are my intuitive thirst cues that my body is sending me, as part of its self-regulation, are becoming something that is more in my awareness. That's a really good sign for noticing how my habit is starting to stick with me, and being able to clue into how it's impacting my body in a positive way reinforces me to continue doing that habit, and gives a different felt sense to my lived experience when I'm able to note like what that actual like craving is that my body has, instead of filling it with something else and then being dissatisfied with the outcome because it was the wrong thing to be serving a need, right? So that's one thing. My other goal that I talked about last time was the need to make it to the gym. So I'm on a program right now that has me at the gym 4 days a week. I've been making it 2 to 3, which is better than the 1 to 2 that I was making. It's not where I want it to be, but like we said, incremental progress. And what I was harping on last time, and I'll harp on again this time, is like sleep needs to be on point for going to the gym to be effective. Why? Because sleep is the most anabolic thing that you can do for your body. Anabolic is the growth of muscle, like things that aid you in creating more muscle. Recovery is best done by sleeping. So if I'm only getting, which I am, only like 5 to 7 hours worth of sleep, and what I need is closer to 8, I will prioritize my sleep over that gym workout. Or what I have found as being a halfway point is if I can't make it in the morning when I would prefer to, I am making an effort to try and fit it in an afternoon instead. And if I can't even do the full workout, at least I go and I get part of it done, because something is better than nothing. So being able to adjust the goal accordingly so that I am taking into full account how to get the most out of my time and out of my experience is something that I have been putting a lot of work into as I'm thinking about the time that I'm spending going to the gym and how I want to go from 2 days a week to 4 days a week. So what sort of piggybacks on that, and I hadn't started this last we spoke, but have since started, is really nailing down my daily tracking of what I'm eating. So one of my goals that is coming up here is to move from a build phase into a cut phase, which means that instead of increasing my calories, I'm decreasing my calories. I've been building muscle, and now we're looking to take some of the added fat off that comes with the building muscle process. And then we'll reverse back into a build at the end of the cut. But I don't get to cut if I have not, what do I want to say? If I hate to put it as like, if I have not earned it, but let's put it this way. Like, I love the phrase, like, you cannot be upset about the results you didn't get for the work that you didn't do. So I don't get to have a cut until we have a baseline established of what I've been eating, how much of it I've been eating, so that we know as we're decreasing, like what's a good place to be decreasing from. So like, for example, it would be unhealthy to suddenly, like, if I were to arbitrarily pick to like decrease my caloric intake to 1,500 calories a day. For someone, that might be reasonable. For me, who eats almost 3,000, that would be cutting my food consumption in half. It's gonna shock my body's system. If I shock my body's system, my body's more likely to go into, like, for lack of a better way of putting it, like a fight or flight or a survival mode, and it will choose not to lose the weight because it will think that we're like going through some sort of famine, and we, I mean me, and suddenly it's like hanging on to everything it possibly can, and that would be defeating the purpose of doing the cut in the first place. So we don't want to shock the system. We want to gradually decrease the number of calories based on whatever our baseline happens to be. So what my body is holding its maintenance weight at right now based on what I've been eating. So I have to do the homework of figuring out what that baseline is. So even if my tracking isn't perfect, my goal for the past 2 weeks has been to make sure that I'm getting something into my MyFitnessPal every single day. That is at minimum a rough estimate of what it is that I've been eating. So the way that I'm able to approach that, similar to like how I've already had the water bottle and already been carrying it around with me. I'm pretty good, even if I don't actually write it down in my MyFitnessPal, at making sure that I measure out my ingredients. I eat at home a lot instead of eating out a lot, so that is also helpful. I'm not like sitting here trying to do guesswork about whatever taco I ate out and like whatever else it is that I might consume happened to be. Like, because I'm making most of my meals at home, I know most of what the ingredients are that are going in, and I know the quantities. So where it gets a little dicey is like, I think about like I had spaghetti for dinner last night, and I just sort of like guesstimated that I had like a cup and a half of dry spaghetti. I didn't bother to actually weigh that out. Should I have? Yes, but I was like, F it, I don't care that much. It's close enough. So I am moving in that direction. I am not there yet, but I say all of this because I want each of you to really think about, if you have a big goal, health related or otherwise, like, you don't have to get all the way to perfect or all the way to the end goal of what it is that you're looking to achieve habitually from the start. Like, stair step your way into that to be able to build up the, we'll call it a threshold for tolerance. Like, it's an activity that you would otherwise not tolerate or find intolerant having to do. If you can build up your threshold for doing that, it's like exercising a muscle itself, right? The more that you work at it, then the more that you can take on and the less painful it is to take it on. So, so find your incremental objectives, find your incremental pieces of growth that are going to get you to the ultimate goal, but may not be like the first step to getting there, right? So the third thing I wanted to mention in my priority report this week is the observation that I was, well, at the time that I'm recording this, it's the Tuesday right after 4th of July weekend. And there's a lot going on in the world right now. With the big beautiful bill being passed, and then you know, the philosophical feelings about the 4th of July in relation to that, all of which I'm not going to get into in this particular episode. We might talk about that at another time. But as I was moving into the holiday weekend, you know, my original thought had been like, oh my gosh, I don't have the plans that I was going to have, and I don't have this time, and so I'm going to have all this free time to like work on all this stuff for work and work on the podcast. And I'm so excited. And here's my list of things to do. And I'm going to have so much time. It's going to be amazing. And then I just got to a place where I was just so burnt, like just so burnt out on everything, on life. Like, sometimes you're like working, and you're like really excited about something. And then like, the overwhelm hits, and it's just like you ran into a brick wall. And that's like where I was at like last week as of Thursday. I was just like, I don't have the energy. I feel like all of my ideas are falling out of my head. I don't know where they're going. I don't feel inclined to like work on this stuff. I was like, oh God, like my little existential life crisis that I joke I have like every Wednesday at 2:30 was sitting a little late last week. And I always try and take those moments and just sort of sit with them and observe, because that's where I feel like, whether you want to call it like my internal intuition, or you want to call it like the universe or whatever, but like something was calling that said like, stop, pause, take a deep breath. What can you do today? If you're not being called to do the things that you thought you would be spending time on, what would be a better use of your time? What's going to fuel you going forward if this isn't it? Like, if this isn't working, pivot and focus on something else. And I'm so glad that I listened to that inner voice, because it gave me permission to step back and do one of the things that I love, which is just diving in and reading research. So I spent a lot of time just reading this past weekend. And I don't, like I said, I read research, so like I don't read like riveting materials. There's no John Grisham reading going on in my life right now, or otherwise for that matter. But I dove into a really amazing book, and every time that I do that, I come back with this like new set of ideas, new inspiration, new motivation. Like, I feel so intellectually fueled when I go back and refill my own cup. I have so many more things that I want to talk to you guys about, and so many like different rabbit holes I want to run down, that just really give me a ton of ideas for where this podcast is going. And I think, you know, long term, I hope that I start doing more for myself like that, giving myself more permission to stop, think strategically, do some more journaling, do some more reading, because I think that those are really healthy exercises for me. So the long and short being that taking time for myself has just been a game changer, and I feel revitalized. And I think that that's a lesson that we all need to remind ourselves of, is like, sometimes when something's not working, it's just time to like walk away and do something else, and that things have a way of circling back around, whether that's in our conscious or our subconscious, and we can come back to them with like fresh eyes and start anew. So that said, let's jump into today's conversation. I had this really juicy conversation with a client this week that I just felt like we could all in some way relate to, and I think really does a great job at highlighting exactly how passion plays out in our like true life realities. So that's kind of where I wanted to start today, was just filling you in on that conversation. So she is interviewing for a new job, and she's working 3 jobs herself, and it's the summertime, and so the kids are out of school and they have a different routine, and she's used to being home with them in the summer, and because of the jobs that she has right now, she can't be. And so her husband, who is an awesome partner, and is also a primary caretaker in their house, is getting to spend more time with the kids at home. But he too is also working full time, and just had this interview for this new job, which throws a lot of new scenarios into the air about, if he were to get this job and take it, how are they going to balance childcare, and based on the things that they have decided are non-negotiables about how they want to raise their kids, does this mean that she gives up some of like the work that she is doing so that she can be home, because his new job would take him back to the office, and so he wouldn't be able to stay home with them, and her just feeling very uncertain in these times around like how to best manage all of those competing priorities. And so we talked about like there are several things that were coming up throughout our conversation that seemed like possible themes. So, you know, she's working 3 jobs, whilst her husband is working his job, and like, was all of the work that was being done between the two of them to take care of their household, like, what was the aim of that? Like, are they struggling financially? The answer is no. But where are they at in a financial place isn't known by both of them. That hasn't been like a fully fleshed out conversation between the two of them, which is an important part of the story, because It is the age-old lesson that I think we all have to go through time and time again, that knowledge is power, and that we thrive in fear when we are stuck in uncertainty around things that we do not have answers to. So there is not being able to predict the future, and then there's just not having enough information at our fingertips. We can't predict the future, but for things that actually are like tangible, that do exist, our choice to not know about those things can be a self-hindrance. The reasons for why we have those types of hangups and the anxieties that they inflict are vast in their nature. I know I can relate to her in like, if I am moving through or like nervous for some reason around finances, like oftentimes that information is available, and it's just whether or not I want to go look at it, because it puts me into a position of being able to make choices or being confronted with choices. I actually think that confronted is the more apt word in this particular moment, because it's easier to avoid choice when we can't make it because we don't have information than it is to be like, oh, now I'm empowered with knowledge to actually like, I have the ability to make this choice. But I might not like my, like in my mind, in our minds, like when we are afraid of making a choice, it's like, oh, but am I gonna like my options? Like, what am I gonna have to lose? Like, there's all of these ways that we take a negative approach to things that like might not even be real problems. They might be like made up problems in our head and scenarios that we don't actually have, that don't actually like exist, or that like we don't have enough information to validate. But what's also like great about that, on the flip side, is we can fix that. Like that's a pretty easy solve. Instead of worrying about things of the future, like we're worrying about something that we have full control over in this now moment. And even though that might put us into a place of discomfort, there is comfort in knowing that we have full control over the knowledge that we have. So, or getting the knowledge that we need. So that was step one, was like, okay, well, we don't have enough information to validate right now what the economic impact would be for their family to not have all of these streams of revenue coming into the household. Like, is there a different way to manipulate their use of time that would better benefit the family as a whole versus spreading to adults so thin and then not being able to provide for their kids in the way that they aspire to? So, so we looked at that and we were like, okay, we know that money is a theme. We know that childcare here is a theme. The other question that we had in mind were like, what about personal pursuits? Like, what about these jobs, both the ones that are hers as well as the one that her husband has and the one that he is pursuing? Like, what is of value in the job itself that it would behoove either one of them to continue doing, because it fuels another part of who they are, that they derive meaning and value from. So we looked specifically at her jobs, because her husband wasn't there as part of the conversation, and said, okay, well, it's easy for us to take the project job that is our hustle and like set that aside for another time. And we won't go down this rabbit hole in this episode, but like there's a lot to be said about the pattern of women divesting out of things that are of meaning or value in their lives as being like secondary to all of the other commitments that they have made for other people. That we can be very dismissive of the value of the things that we do for us, and that we find fulfillment and value in, as being something that's like, oh, this just isn't that important, or it doesn't pay as much, or it, for whatever reason, can like go to the wayside in comparison to other things, or like, oh, I haven't had time to like really flesh it out and make it what I want it to be, and so like whatever, it can be on the back burner in comparison to everything else. And you can go, that is an option. So as we talked through her, we'll call that her like passion project job, you know, we sort of decided that in giving that up, that in doing so, she wasn't really gaining the things that she wanted to gain. It wasn't going to give her more time. It wasn't going to change her location. It wasn't going to allow her to spend more concentrated time with her kids. So that wouldn't be a lever worth pulling. So we were like, okay, let's look at the other two. There's which one brings in more financially, and then which one brings in more flexibility. And it turns out that one of them does more of both of those things than the other. And so when we started to talk more and more about that, ultimately, like, her happiness, her fulfillment is derived right now from the time that she gets to spend with her kids, because her kids are little, and you only get them little for so long. I won't go on this tangent today, but like early childhood development are like really important years. So really wanting to, for herself and for her kids and for the values that her family upholds, spend more time with them, that needed to be the North Star that we started measuring everything else in her life against. And so as we were looking at these three jobs, we were like, which one is the one standing in the way of getting to do more of that? And it became very blatantly obvious, like, which one would have to go. And so then we talked through scenarios from there about, if you were to take this job off of your plate, what does that mean for you in terms of your own personal pursuits? Like, are you losing? Do you feel emotionally tied to this because you're losing something from it? And her answer was, I think, a brilliant one, quite frankly. You know, she sees a lot of how her talents get to come to life, and all the things that she really and truly enjoys doing in a career atmosphere get to be manifested through this job. But it's not something that she ties. I don't think any of the three of her jobs are necessarily, maybe the passion project, are very tied to her identity. Like, I think she has really healthy boundaries between how she perceives her career and the value that she provides and delivers to other people through that avenue, as separate from who she is herself, and in many ways, like, sees that, or as we talked, started to see how her career is really meant to fuel more of who she gets to be at home and with her children, and that is really and truly what she ultimately cares about, and puts above everything else. So as we were weighing, like, what are the trade-offs for your personal pursuits if this job were to go to the wayside, we really discovered that in taking inventory of the things that she's learned from this position, that she has enjoyed about this position, that she thrives in with this position, all sets her up to be successful in those realms at a later point in time. And like, there's nothing, she's not taking away from anything of her future by not getting to do this job as it exists today. That the bigger loss is happening in motherhood than it is in the professional realm, based on where priorities and time is sitting currently. And that's like, it's really important to be able to see very clearly, like, okay, if I understand I'm not losing anything by not doing this job, that this job is not, it's not crushing my identity, it doesn't put me financially at risk, and I'm not losing skills or like momentum by not staying in this role, it makes it very clear what makes more sense in terms of a trade-off. There's more to lose in not spending time where she values it most than where she has been spending it. And she made a really astute observation as we were talking about this, that like, she's so passionate about motherhood, so passionate about the way that she wants to spend time raising her kids, that's true, really and truly her passion, like first and foremost, above all of the other things going on right now. And she was like, but my passion isn't tied to a vocation. My identity isn't tied to a vocation. And I was like, can we explain that, please, and thank you to like most Americans? Please. Like, it's a big part. Vocation is great. And some of us have it, some of us don't. Some of us are very passionate about our careers. Some of us, not so much, or at least not in a healthy way. But that like pursuing a passion doesn't have to come in the form of a vocation. It just doesn't. There are far more ways, far different ways to feel like you are deriving meaning and value and giving meaning and value to life that don't exist in a monetarily driven environment. Let's put it that way. Or that don't have monetary outcomes. So what we were talking about is like, yes, spending time with your kids does not like, it's not bringing money in, but it's also a priceless activity. So maybe the value of doing that is far greater than what money could ever pay you for. And since you can never save time, you can only choose how you spend it, it's really important to see that how you position your trade-offs changes your mindset, changes your perspective, and makes it, hopefully, like at least in this instance, made it so much clearer what like the optimal outcome would be of all of the hypothetical scenarios that she's been tossing around. And when you have that North Star of what it is that you're ultimately working towards, then like, even if giving up this third job can't, for whatever reason, happen tomorrow, and it doesn't need to happen tomorrow, it gives you the opportunity to see the goal, see the vision for where it is that you want to get to, and then gives you meaning and purpose behind why you're going to that job at present, so that you're going into it with a personal goal of what it is that you're working towards. Even if the thing that you're working towards is being there less and less so that you can be home with your children, you now have reason to go and do that every day. You have a different approach to it where you will give the effort required for the job, but with the mindset of what it gives back to you that is comparable to how you value that activity in your life in comparison to the other things that you're passionate about. So to say that a little bit more succinctly, like, we talk a lot at Slow Living Solutions about not all priorities are equal, not all things are of the same amount of value, and we can get really hung up on overvaluing things that have a monetary attachment to them at the expense of things that are non-monetary but give more to us. So, and that can happen for, because of social pressures or financial pressures or identity pressures. But when we can start to see how that's playing itself out, it brings a new awareness to our choices. So, so we started off with understanding what her underlying concerns were. And then we moved into like, what are the pieces of information? What are her next steps? What does she need to know in order to make informed decisions based on her value system? So things like understanding what her family's monetary goals are, how the jobs that they are doing are contributing to those larger goals, what the monetary and non-monetary trade-offs are if they were to make some decisions around how they spend time differently so that more time is being spent with their kids, or there's more flexibility in their work hours to accommodate spending time with their children. And then we moved into really having a better sense for what her passion actually is. So really being able to name where the value lies and why it is that we are focused in the direction so that there's a North Star to orient everything towards. So if you're struggling with bringing your passion to life, or feeling like your passion is not of monetary value, please rest assured that it doesn't need to be, and that you shouldn't discredit the importance of investing in it on the basis of that it doesn't have a monetary output attached to it. There might be other examples that do not involve children where like spending your time on something that you're passionate about but lives outside of your quote unquote career or vocation has priceless implications for you. As a piggyback thought that I'm gonna just I'm planting a seed for a later episode as I say this, but also recognize that even if you don't feel like you're experiencing this in the present moment or in a self-aware state, think about the fact that devaluing the things that you are passionate about is a symptom of feeling a lack of worthiness. Let me say that again. So when we discredit or devalue the things that we are passionate about, be it for whatever reason, we are diminishing our own self-worth. In order for us to invest in our passions, to feel like that is an option for us, we have to start to see ourselves in a different light. We have to believe that we are deserving of the happiness that our passion and passionate pursuits provides for us. So I'm not expecting that you are just able to like wake up and feel differently or like give yourself a pep talk in the mirror. I just, at this stage, before we do a whole episode on this, I just want to plant the seed for you to think about, are there ways in which you subconsciously have been devaluing yourself because you have devalued the passions that you have or the value of the things that you are passionate about. And perhaps think about like what would happen. How would you feel if you chose to make those things a priority? As being emotionally priceless for you. So I'm gonna wrap up this episode on that note. When we come back for our next episode, we're gonna focus on the concept of power. There's a lot of connotations around the word power that we will break down, and what we mean by power here at Slow Living Solutions, and how we enact power in a very positive way. We'll also talk about how power is the key to unlocking our strengths, and how strengths and passion work together to build our purpose. So that will be the next episode, which will come out in about 2 weeks. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh gosh. Well, for starters, like if you've enjoyed this episode, like, share, follow, make sure that you are subscribed to our email list, so that you can get weekly updates with other tips and tricks, not just on passion, but on all forms of empowerment. And if you are interested in having a more in-depth conversation, please feel free to DM me, email me, or apply for the Empowerment Method, which is our proprietary method and structured process for working one-on-one with you to move you from managing and or coping with the unknown and feeling that sense of overwhelm, burnout, uncertainty, lack of clarity, to really having a plan and a process and knowing how to best manage your emotions and time to have the most fulfilling life possible. So I look forward to chatting with you again in the next episode, and we'll see you next time.